Hi there. Thanks for tuning in to the Freedom Update. Today I want to give you an update about our case in British Columbia challenging the constitutionality of their proof of vaccination policy or vaccine passport policy. It's a topic that I've talked about before on this channel, and I'm excited to give you an update. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Christine, and I'm the litigation director for the Canadian Constitution Foundation, which is a legal charity in Canada that fights for fundamental freedoms in the courts of law and public opinion. I upload videos on this channel about our ongoing cases and other interesting legal developments in Canada. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, please hit like and subscribe below. It really helps my videos out a lot. And please remember that this video is for information purposes only. It is not legal advice. If you have your own legal question or issue, please contact your own lawyer for your own advice. I'm filming this video in my car today because I've been having a crazy few weeks. I have been living up north with my family so that they can help with childcare. And I've been commuting back and forth to my television program, Canadian Justice. So on the days that I film, I have about 6 hours of driving, some days depending on traffic. So I try to squeeze in these Freedom Update videos where I can. And today it's from my car between Penetanguishene and St. Catharines. Now, I thought today would be a good time to give an update about our BC case for a few reasons. First, because the material in our case has now been filed and it's posted on our website, theccf.ca. If you're interested in reading it, I really suggest checking it out. It's very well written by our exceptionally talented lawyer, Jeffrey Trotter. And if you want to look at it, head to our website. You can see all the details of the case there. Although I'm going to be going over a lot of the details today, so if you watch the video, you'll find out a lot of them as well. I also wanted to provide this update because last week the BC government gave their own update on the vaccine passport policy. On January 18th, BC medical officer Bonnie Henry announced that the government would be extending the events and gatherings restrictions in that province until February 16th. And she also confirmed that there would be no relaxation of the proof of vaccination policy. She was asked in the press conference on the 18th how long the vaccine passport policy would remain in place. And Dr. Henry stated there have been no final decisions about whether the policy will be expanded or how long it will be in place. So her comments were then followed by Health Minister Adrian Dix, who praised the proof of vaccination policy as popular with British Columbians. And once again, we're seeing this temporary health measure become a little bit less temporary. Now, as I've said so many times before, I think that British Columbians and Canadians should be concerned about policies like this. Civil liberties advocates have rightly warned against the rationale for measures like vaccine passports. I am one of those people who has warned against these measures. The idea of a vaccine passport policy changes the nature of our society from an open and liberal one to one where you're required to show papers or documentation to go about your daily life. And because of that, I really feel strongly that there are problems with this policy, but at a bare minimum, these policies should be time limited. The government's continued pushing back of the endpoints for policies like this is really troubling, especially because there's no indication whatsoever of what criteria would need to be met in order for these restrictions and policies to end for good. In particular, I think that the rationale for proof of vaccination policies has become extremely questionable now, since vaccination is proving to be far less effective against contraction and transmission of the Omicron variant. Yet the government in BC is not questioning the efficacy of this policy, and they're instead contemplating expanding it. Minister Dix's view that the policy is popular is not a justification for it. because decisions about our fundamental rights are not made on the basis of public opinion. The very fact that this policy disadvantages a minority group in particular, those with physical disabilities that preclude them from being vaccinated, it's a clear example of why rights are not granted on the basis of popularity. John Locke long warned against the tyranny of the majority, and it's one of the reasons why we have a constitution. Now, all of this brings us to our case in British Columbia. BC has what we at the CCF have called the worst vaccine passport policy in Canada. And the biggest problem with the BC policy is their failure to accommodate people who can't be vaccinated for medical reasons. Our legal challenge was filed on December 22nd, and while we had announced it a few months before that, because the case is based on medical facts, we had to go through voluminous medical records in order to put together the supporting evidence for the case. We really want to be successful, and that requires a good and solid evidentiary record. Our case is challenging the vaccine passport policy in BC for failing to create an effective, comprehensive, and accessible regime for medical exemptions. And we brought the challenge as an organization along with 3 individuals. And the stories of those 3 individuals, their stories are really compelling. So the first is a teen girl. Her name is Erica. And shortly after getting her first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, she developed a rare but well-documented adverse reaction, a form of heart inflammation called pericarditis. This is a really rare condition, but it is a condition that is recognized, and it does happen. For most people, the vaccine is very safe. Erica is one of the people it was not safe for. Erica's physicians have told her not to get a second dose, and even though pericarditis is on BC Public Health's approved list of recognized grounds for a medical deferral, not exemption, just a deferral, the policy actually doesn't even entitle her to a general exemption from the vaccine passport requirement. Instead, she needs to apply to the Public Health Office for an exemption on what they call an activity by activity basis. There is no option for a generalized exemption that would allow Erica to be treated the same as a fully vaccinated person. There's also no timeline for approval of these activity by activity exemptions. So there's no guarantee that time-sensitive requests by Erica could be heard in time and approved. So something as minor as a last-minute dinner with friends or as significant as attending a funeral may not be approved by public health in time for Erica to attend, if indeed that request would be approved at all. So as a result, Erica is presumptively excluded from all vaccine passport required venues unless she obtains specific permission from public health to attend a particular venue and event. Erica isn't treated as a free citizen entitled to direct her own life and is instead subject to the Public Health Office's veto power and government approval or denial of permission for each place that she wants to go. But Erica at least has the option to apply for an exemption. The other individuals in our petition don't even have this ability. Let me tell you about Sharon. Sharon also experienced an adverse reaction to her first dose of the COVID vaccine. However, her reaction was even rarer than Erica's. She developed a neurological condition called brachial neuritis with scapular winging. This causes extreme pain and partial paralysis of her right dominant arm. Sharon consulted over months with multiple specialists, including neurologists and a physiatrist, which is a kind of rehab specialist doctor who treats functional impairments involving the nervous system. These doctors believe that her condition was an adverse reaction to the COVID-19 vaccine. Sharon's doctors can't assure her that a second dose of her vaccine wouldn't repeat or worsen the nerve damage, and she's also pregnant now. So she's really very concerned that any worsening or repeated nerve damage could also impact her ability to care for her baby when her baby is born, or even affect her baby while she's still pregnant. So despite all of this, which is a really compelling story, BC Public Health has nonetheless advised Sharon to get a second dose of the vaccine. They've told her that her condition is not life-threatening and it is not permanent. It may resolve with treatment. Sharon's condition is also not reflected on the Public Health Office's closed list of accepted reasons why a vaccine passport exemption could be granted on the grounds of a medical reason. Even though Sharon's doctors who are treating her have warned her of the risk of further adverse reactions, she's not even eligible to apply for an exemption. The third individual in our case is a woman named Veronica. And Veronica has multiple complex and overlapping disabilities. She's undergone about 15 surgeries in her life to treat these disabilities, many of which have had poor recoveries. And she's also had adverse reactions to multiple medications. Because of her really complicated medical history, Veronica has declined to get vaccinated against COVID-19. This is a very personal trade-off that Veronica has had to make about her own health. And informed consent is a touchstone of the law in this area, recognizing that it's for the individual, not their doctor or the government, to decide how much treatment or risk to run in pursuit of reducing other risk. However, Veronica's situation isn't reflected in the public health order list of medical conditions that could entitle you to an exemption, making her ineligible to even request an exemption. This is having an especially negative impact on Veronica because Veronica is mobility impaired. She relies on public swimming pools for about 3 hours a day of swim therapy to reduce the chronic pain that she lives with. Now, 3 hours of swimming a day sounds like a lot, but if that is the only mobility that you have each day, it's still not a lot of mobility. When she has regular swim therapy, Veronica is able to reduce the amount of nerve blocking injections that she's required to take. But now the vaccine passport policy requires Veronica to show proof of vaccination in order to access the public pool. Since she's not entitled to an exemption, Veronica is not able to access the pool that she uses to manage her disability, and this is really having a negative impact on her life. It's increased the amount of nerve blocking she's required to take, and it's increased the level of pain that she lives with. So these are three of the people who are being forced to live with a policy that Minister Dix has called popular. And while it is mercifully true that adverse reactions to the COVID-19 vaccine are rare and that conditions that prevent vaccination are uncommon, this doesn't mean that these types of reactions don't exist or that the people who suffer from them can be simply brushed aside. The popularity of a policy with the majority does not justify the harm that it is doing to a small minority. Moreover, in a liberal society, we must make accommodations for these types of cases. And the CCF and the individuals in our case are really eagerly awaiting a scheduling of the hearing for this challenge. Now, I want to add at the end of this video, I've talked a lot about vaccination, I've talked a lot about adverse reaction, and I want to emphasize that adverse reactions are very rare, but they do exist. I am fully vaccinated. My family is vaccinated. We encourage people at the CCF to speak to their physician about vaccination because for most people, it is a really good and healthy choice to make. It will reduce your risk of hospitalization. I encourage everybody who has questions about vaccination to speak to their primary care physician. Now, if you are interested in following along our case, you can read our materials at theccf.ca, and you can also sign up for our Freedom Update emails. We are waiting for the government to respond to the materials, and we are waiting for a hearing to be scheduled. If you sign up for our Freedom Update notifications, you'll find out as soon as we have a hearing scheduled, and we're also hoping that it will include a public link for streaming so that you can observe it once it is scheduled. Okay, that's all for this update. Thanks for tuning in, and let's keep fighting for freedom in Canada.